welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the program. Thanks for finding us. Please don't forget to subscribe and then also comment. We love the comments. And for those who are returning, a big thank you. Why do we say thank you? Well, because we've topped into the top 10 fastest growing podcasts on the globe. And that's pretty fun because there are over 1 million podcasters out there. So thanks to your listening, and also thanks to our great guests for coming on and providing interesting stories. Quick house cleaning, like always, don't forget to subscribe. We are on every major social media platform, 23 different podcast distribution points. But always, I recommend you come to the show website, rexandrewshow.com. We've got bios, and you can learn more and links to every one of our guests. And then you can see some of the fun things that we're up to that help you in your life. Okay, so let's get on with it today. A great guest. I'm excited to bring him onto the show. Got a topic that I'm guessing that 95% or more of you have no knowledge about. It's an up-and-coming thing. But to give you some previews, we've got basically a Harvard grad who played football at Harvard, a defensive end. So he wasn't just a water boy. He was playing defensive end at Harvard, so that's a D1 school. He spent some time in sports marketing around the country doing some interesting things. We'll talk about that. And he is the founder of Next Up Esports. Esports are huge, and I'd like to welcome to the show today, Luke Zelon. Luke, glad to have you.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
All right. So what I want to do real quick so people can follow along, because sometimes we have people in front of computers or a tablet or something else are listening.
Sure.
Can you tell us real quick how people can find your business so that way if they're following along, they can kind of look as we go. So real quick, can you give out your website?
Yep, absolutely. www.nextupesports.com. Next is spelled NXT, so just remove the E. Okay. NXTUPesports.com, and then all social media platforms at Next Up Esports.
Fantastic. All right, so Luke, we always like to get the picture behind the person. You know, everybody's a story, and I always tell people, it's one of my favorite phrases, is I've got more interests than just one lifetime, so there's always another story around the corner. So I want to learn a little bit about how'd you get to where you are today, because we all are sort of products and being molded by our past, and, you know, as we grow up. So we'll go into some things. Going to ask you about your family, where you grew up, family life, you know, what your parents did for a living, those types of things. A little bit is hopscotch through your education, maybe some pivotal things that happened there. Obviously, all the way up to Harvard and playing football. We'll talk about that a little bit because I'm a football head. And then we'll jump into some hops along the way of your career. And then we want to find out about this stuff that you're doing at your company. All right. So
yeah, absolutely.
Take us to the story a little bit, Luke. Where'd you grow up? Where were you raised? And what was your family like?
Grew up in Southern California in Santa Monica. I still live here. You know, it's a little bit warmer than Boston. And I realized pretty quickly during my time in college that I was going to be coming right back. And I'm happy to be here. I was just talking to a buddy the other day who's still in Boston, and it was in the 40s. And, you know, I'm looking outside, it's bright, sunny, 70 degrees. So very grateful to have grown up in this area.
Yeah, I've got a daughter that's at Tufts. So, yeah, Boston is a little different.
Okay, she knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Fantastic. All right. So you're still in Santa Monica. So let's talk about, so you grew up in Santa Monica. What would your family look like? Peers, siblings, what did it look like?
Yeah, 2 younger sisters, both involved in athletics as well. My dad has worked in film and production his career. My mom's a preschool teacher. So I was kind of always around the entertainment industry.
Okay.
Grew up playing just about every sport, then really started to focus on football as I got into high school. Knew I wanted to play in college as well. And so everything I was doing was really focused on making it to that next level. And I think, you know, then my career kind of followed suit, being able to merge the entertainment kind of background of being in Los Angeles and my family, but also my interest in athletics.
Fantastic. So where'd you play your high school ball?
I went to Santa Monica High School, right down the street.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Oh, when there's a chance to props the locals, we do. So that's cool. So you went to Harvard. So that means you were probably paying attention in class just a little bit.
Yeah, I like to think I'm a little bit more clever than smart.
All righty. Well, that's a good thing. So that's hard work to get to that level. Did you hunt down any other schools, or was Harvard your main target?
Yeah, I mean, I had scholarship offers from a number of other schools. Harvard doesn't give athletic scholarships.
No.
They do have a phenomenal financial aid program,
Hmm.
but the allure of going to Harvard was really something you have a hard time passing up. And the funny
Oh,
thing is,
absolutely.
when you get there, you realize that most of the other players on the team, and athletes in general for that matter, are kind of in the same position where they had opportunities to go to other really big time schools. You know, I had
Hmm.
scholarship offers from the Big 12, from the Pac 12, but people pass those up because they want to go to Harvard. And honestly, it was the best choice, maybe one of the best choices I made in my entire life, because that impacts literally every aspect
Yeah.
of your life. Educational, obviously, but professional and socially, it really changes your life.
Well, it's an elite group. I mean, it's not like you didn't just graduate from Southern Cal or Colorado or Utah or someplace. Oklahoma. There's a prestige in the professional. There are connections in the professional
Hmm.
groups there. Yeah, it's an incredible. Wouldn't call it elite, but I mean elitist. I would say that it's a very unique and lots of benefits to be in those circles. That's great.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
no doubt.
So, what did you get your degree in?
I studied sociology, mostly because I realized pretty quickly the way that I like to learn, the type of projects and that I want to work on,
Uh-huh.
mostly on my own time. I want to
Okay.
go to the library, put headphones in, and just jam on my work. And that was, sociology was mostly just writing papers. So I could go to the library on the weekends and just crank all my work out. And it wasn't like I had weekly homework or things like that. The other
Hmm.
great thing is I'm very much a generalist, and sociology I found was a very general kind of topic, or at least the classes that I was able to take covered all sorts of areas of our society, and so it was much more interesting to me than focusing, really acutely on one subject. I could think about a lot of them.
Okay, that's cool. Now, you obviously made a brilliant choice going to Harvard. Uh, when you made your choice for sociology, were you really thinking about your job next, or
No.
I mean, because that's one of the things. There's a lot of it, and I'm not knocking anybody. I mean, anybody gets a college degree. It's a lot of hard work, and people don't realize, some of those things that it takes. But then there's this whole thing of, well, what am I going to do with my degree afterwards? I mean, I don't really want a degree that I can't monetize or have a great
Hmm.
career. So,
I did not think about it.
okay.
I was a freshman trying to figure out what classes am I going to be able to get good grades in. Luckily, I think Harvard, you're in a unique situation where if you graduate, the major doesn't matter quite as much.
Okay. Yeah. Fair
Now,
enough.
maybe it's because of my own experience, but when I read people's resumes and when I've hired in the past, I am not very critical of of what their major was or the classes they took. Now, that's also because there's not a ton, there's really like no esports classes that you can take in school. And
Right.
even when I was working in traditional sports, sports management as a major is not going to teach you everything you need to know about the sports industry. And I
Right.
realized I didn't know anything, and I got a job and I figured it all out. So you don't really have a huge leg up by going into sports management.
Right.
Frankly, I believe that more college students should just study what they're interested in
Yep.
and then pursue internships and other job opportunities in whatever career field or path that they want to go down. If they have good grades, I think that's going to be actually more important than, I study something very specific. Now, those statements are probably not true if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Right. And if you're studying a science or a really
Correct. Correct.
niche, discipline. My uncle was one I turned to when I was a kid because when you're 18, 19 years old, you don't always want to listen to your parents, kind of thing.
Sure.
So I turned to my uncle and he said, look, just study what you love. Because I tried, pre-med for a while and, I was playing football, chasing girls and drinking beer. I thought that was more important than carrying on huge science books, biology and
Mm-hmm.
chemistry classes. And He just said study of love. So I got my education in geography, urban and regional planning. That was cool stuff. I never used it, not once. So I would totally agree. It's more about finishing, getting something done. However, I don't think a lot of people, when they get degrees that they didn't think about monetizing, they don't really do a good job of packaging themselves up on those interviews.
Yeah, look, interviewing is a skill in itself.
Yeah, it is.
And I think high school should be teaching more
Yep.
life skills
Yep.
than geometry
Sure.
and those types of courses right now.
Yep.
It's not even necessarily the jobs of colleges because, as we know, a lot of people aren't able to go to college for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Just getting experience is the most important thing. When I look at someone's resume, I value experience much more than whether they went to college or what college they went to or what they studied.
Well, that was my uncle's final advice was it doesn't matter what you got your degree in, because after that first job or two, they want to know that you got the piece of paper. After that, it's all about your experience. And so, I tell people it's probably more important how you package yourself out of school, because if you can't interview and you don't show up to be a star and a problem solver, well, then you're just not going to get a job.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So cool. Let's go ahead and you get out of school, you start looking around. What'd you find? What was your first job?
So I realized that I wanted to pursue something in sports. That's all I could think about. I didn't want to go or the traditional routes of banking, finance, consulting that a lot of my friends were going into didn't, really strike me as something I wanted to get into.
Okay.
And being in LA, we're lucky that we have a lot of sports organizations here, not just professional teams, but there's a ton of agencies. And so I had some connections at some sports agencies, got an internship at one, enjoyed it, landed a job as an assistant at another. And that's kind of the typical entertainment entry-level job here in Los Angeles. You support someone as an assistant for a year or two, and then you kind of graduate and move on to another role in the company. However, I was at this company for a month when the parent company filed for bankruptcy.
Oh, wow.
So I'm here thinking, like, what have I gotten myself into? I don't even understand, like, do I still have a job? What does this all mean? Luckily, I was working with some really great people who left shortly afterwards and formed their own agency and were kind enough to invite me to kind of join them on the journey.
Okay. So how long did you do that?
I was there for 2 or 3 years. So it was a company called Catalyst Sports and Media. We represented NBA players as talent agents.
Okay.
And then we were heavily involved in esports at the time.
Okay.
We tried to start an esports league. There was a ton of complications around that. And then we got into more of like a consulting role for organizations that understood traditional sports and wanted to make the move over into esports, professional video games. And this was in 2015, late 2015, early 2016, right as there was a lot of changes happening in the esports industry, most notably a ton of investment from established investors, traditional sports teams and owners. And so there was a major shift in the esports industry at that time.
Okay. So for those who really aren't quite as familiar with it, you popped right through it. Unpack for our listeners what esports really is all about.
Yeah, good question. Esports is competitive video games.
Okay.
Players who are getting paid to play a video game on a professional level. It's not very different from professional basketball. The Lakers have players who they are paying a salary to wear the jersey and go play games 3 or 4 nights a week.
Yep.
In turn, the Lakers are able to monetize that team. They can sell tickets, they can sell sponsorships, they can sell, media rights deals so people can watch them on TV, all those kinds of things.
It's funny when you mention basketball, because I always think about this. It's like, LeBron, do you realize you're just content? Because that's the truth. The Lakers are monetizing him, and he's just content. Popular
and he's
content.
Getting paid pretty well for it.
Yeah, he's not doing bad. He's not eating many bologna sandwiches.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now a question I have on esports, because again, I'm learning as much as the next person here. Is there an audience for that? I mean, are people, tuning in for an audience for it?
Yeah, huge audience. I think the distinction that should be made, though, is that we use esports as this huge umbrella term.
Mm-hmm.
It actually covers a number of different games.
Okay,
It's
let's
like
talk about that.
you can't compare esports necessarily to the NBA because the NBA is just one sport. It's
Right.
one league,
One
a
league.
collection of teams. Esports are League of Legends, Fortnite, Overwatch, dozens of other games. It's really
Okay.
any game that can be played professionally.
Mm-hmm.
That has a good viewing experience for fans as well.
Okay.
Now, there's some games that are, most of these games are multiplayer, not all of them. Some games are more narrative driven.
Mm-hmm.
So the early games that came out were all single player. I play the same game that you're playing. We're kind of on the same journey, on the same storyline. And then became multiplayer gameplay, where you and I can play against each other, or we can be on the same team and play against others.
Okay.
There was a huge revolution when online gaming came out.
Yeah.
People can probably remember Xbox Live.
Yep.
Or first, when internet came out, you were able to play on your computer against other players. Now, those things have increased. The connection speeds have increased. The computing power of the machines have increased. And so we're able to play 5-on-5 games with a team here in Los Angeles versus a team in New York.
Wow. That's
really
incredible.
High quality.
It's really incredible because, I have a 20-year-old son and a 22-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been into games, but not overly, I wouldn't call them total nerds, but they'll still play games and, they're in vast different locations. I do have a nephew that's way into gaming, and most of the people he's playing against are all over the country and a couple over the world. So it's really an odd concept for me because I remember back in the days when video games was Pac-Man at Pizza Hut, and then we went to Atari, and we played Space Invaders and stuff like that. So it's all evolved. So it's a huge industry. It is absolutely a huge industry, but it's not an industry that gets a ton of exposure or media. Right now it's growing immensely.
It's growing, yeah, for sure. And if you're looking in the right places,
sure.
And I think someone like me who's inundated in this community, I see it all the time.
Sure.
For a lot of people, they've heard the term esports, but probably don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's why I want to talk about it. Yeah.
Yep. I always like to draw the parallels between traditional sports and esports.
Okay.
Because in the same way that you and your buddies will watch an NFL game on a Sunday and call each other and talk about it and say, wow, what great plays. That dynamic and those social interactions exist in the same exact way in esports. Fridays and Saturdays, I'm watching League of Legends competitions on my computer. Before COVID, I was going to the arena in West LA and watching it at Riot's headquarters.
Really?
And there's hundreds of people who show up to watch these video games, and the players will be there on stage playing. I have friends who I will have like digital watch parties with. We'll both be at home and we'll both be watching the game at the same time. There's a huge community around these games, people who love playing, but similarly love watching and can appreciate high-level gameplay in the same way that you can watch an NFL game and say, wow, Tom Brady is a great quarterback. I've been on a football field. I can appreciate the skill and the dedication, the hard work it takes for him to do those things. Same dynamic exists for esports in all games. They understand the mental fortitude, literally the physical abilities, how fast you're able to click the keyboard and the mouse. Those same things exist.
That's fascinating. So before COVID, there were a lot more in-person events, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And now that's all been back down. I mean, I won't get into the politics of lockdowns. I mean, it's just crazy. But so help me understand this a little bit now. And I'm assuming I know the answer a little bit, but maybe not everybody's thinking about this. I've got two teams playing. Maybe it's Fortnite. Okay. Maybe I've got one in LA and one in Toledo. Okay.
Sure.
So do people just dial in to watch that happening? I mean, how does that work from a logistics perspective?
It's actually super easy.
Okay.
You or I could live stream our own gameplay right now.
Yeah.
So the technology exists and it's easy to use.
Okay.
You can go on Twitch, which is one of the biggest live streaming services on the internet, twitch.tv.
Okay.
Acquired, just to give you some perspective and show that this is a real thing. His company was acquired by Amazon in 2014, I believe, for almost $1 billion.
Yeah.
Most games will live stream, or most leagues will live stream their games on Twitch. So I'll just pop on. I can watch a competitive match. The other really cool thing that does not exist in traditional sports is that you can also watch professional players or influencers practicing. So it would be like if you could watch LeBron James going through his daily practices, and you could be a spectator, and you could write in the chat and communicate with him and ask him questions, and he would respond to you. That dynamic exists where the best esports, League of Legends player, Fortnite players are playing all day long or all night long.
Right.
And they communicate with the chat.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I'm a geek. I'm sorry. I've spent 35 years in technology, so maybe everybody doesn't quite get that. But so are these players, I hold back saying kids because that's probably a complete misnomer, but are these professional players, are they really, by doing their practice online, are they trying to monetize that by building a brand? I mean,
they're getting paid a lot of money.
Okay.
So they can get paid from a salary through their team.
Okay.
They can get paid through endorsements where brands will pay them and say, hey, I want you to talk about this product. I want you to use this product on the stream. I want you to wear our t-shirt or use our gaming chair.
Yeah, wear our hat, whatever, right?
Exactly. That's no different than traditional sports. But through Twitch and through this live streaming platform, there's new revenue opportunities.
Okay.
So Twitch is selling advertisements. They got a huge advertisement machine. So just like you pop onto YouTube and you see an ad before you watch a video, or you see an ad right in the middle of the video, Twitch is doing that same thing. And part of that money goes to Twitch and Amazon, and part of that money goes to the broadcaster, to the player.
Oh, that's cool.
In addition, you can subscribe to your favorite players. So if you really like watching, let's say Bjergsen, who's one of the best League of Legends players in North America, you can subscribe to his channel, and for $5 a month, you get some exclusive content. You get a really cool badge next to your name, so everybody knows you're one of the diehard fans in the community.
Oh my!
And again, Twitch takes part of that, and the influencer takes part of that. So you can also just donate to the players too. If you want to say, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. Here's $5. Here's $100. And oftentimes you get to ask a question. So sometimes they have, Bjergsen, can you tell me how long you practice? Or I'm really working hard at this character in the game. Do you have any tips? And it'll pop up on the screen, and Bjergsen will read it and then give an answer to it. So you get that kind of really much more intimate interaction with these players than you will with a traditional sports athlete. And of these things, these guys are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month doing this.
A month?
A month.
Oh my goodness. Maybe I need to strengthen my thumbs. You
gotta start playing a lot of video games.
Yeah, I started playing a lot of video games. Okay, so the next question is, our observation comment is, if the NBA or any of the other normal traditional sports could figure out how to get paid for watching practice, they'd do it. We live here in Denver, and my boys would always love to, go to the Broncos, not the preseason games, but the games during the practice, that kind of stuff during the season.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They open up the stadium, everybody comes and stuff like that. So, they're monetizing that. But I'm just sitting here thinking, dang, every practice you're getting paid for people to watch practice.
Mm-hmm.
What a way to monetize something. That's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult for teams because they don't want to share sensitive information.
Okay.
Right, if a team is running plays, they don't want, I'm the other team. Think about what Bill Belichick would be doing. He'd have some interns scraping these streams and writing down all the plays they're running and all the different audible calls.
And then they would swear Then they would swear it's not a inflated correctly ball, right?
Yeah, sure. But if you have a player who's just in the gym working out, people would still love to watch that. Think about that's essentially what the NFL Combine is.
Yeah. Well, heck, you can even call that as the 4 preseason games. I think that's trash.
Yeah.
Anybody that can sit through that last 4th game of the season when the starters play 12 plays, and then the rest of the guys are UPS guys and pizza delivery guys and insurance agents and all that stuff, because they're not gonna make it, right? So Anyway, so that's interesting. Wow. Being able to catch practices and stuff. But I guess, the thing about doing it with esports is because you can distribute it easier, you can restrict it, probably a lot easier to do that than they could at any of the other traditional sports.
Yeah, and it's not team practices, so there is a difference.
Individual.
Like if League of Legends teams are not broadcasting every time those 5 players are playing together,
right?
The individuals are showing their own workouts would be the analogy.
Okay, so it's much like a Patreon subscription or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're exactly
very similar.
But a lot of people have realized when they're monetizing stuff online that $5 a person per month adds up to a lot of coin.
A ton
of money. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So now you've spent quite a bit of time bouncing around before you started your company with esports. What gave you the desire or the decision to go ahead and start your company?
So when I was working for this consulting group, the one that was helping traditional sports organizations get into esports, one of the projects we were working on was developing a training program for gamers, for high-level players all the way down to casual players,
okay,
to train them to get better at these games. And part of the program included on the computer, in-game training. Part of the program included, weightlifting, mindfulness, more physical, or just call it away from the game training. So it was something that was very well-rounded.
Right.
And those were very specialized programs, week-long camps or boot camps to get ready for a season. But I always saw the final evolution of that business being a little league for video games, because it didn't exist at the time.
Wow.
It was really surprising to me, mostly because I thought about my own experience growing up playing a number of different sports, and they were all very similar. You sign up, there's a coach, there's other kids your age, your skill level, you're taught the rules of the game, you're taught the fundamentals. And as you get older and grow up and you like certain games and not others, certain sports and not others, the programs have become a little bit more advanced.
Yeah.
What I saw in the professional esports scene was we were kind of working the other way, where the professional scene was being developed first. And then there were groups who were coming into colleges and creating those programs, and then high schools. But still, the youth and recreational scene, it seemed to me, were just completely forgotten.
Wow.
And it was that sense that I was like, there needs to be like some way to help kids get involved in gaming and do so in a safe and social and productive way.
All right, so we're going to come back this minute because I got a question I think a lot of our audience members would like. We'll come back to the development leagues and stuff, youth leagues. If you were to take the whole industry and those that are professional players, recognized and paid like professionals, what's the average? What's the average age?
Oh, it's young.
It's young. Okay.
Depends on the game. League of Legends is one of the most, if not the most, developed professional scenes and have a ton of really well-run leagues. I would say they're probably 20 or 21 is probably the average age. Okay.
Has the industry been around long enough that you have kind of like a life cycle, like in the NFL, if you play 10 years, that's an awesome career, or, the average career is 2.5 years. Is there statistics that show like when there's a point where you just can't compete with the new kids anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes and no.
Okay.
There's numbers that we can look at. There was, when I first got into the industry, the whole thing was like, these kids are retiring by their 21st birthday.
Wow.
That was also a little bit misleading because at the time players weren't being paid as well as they are now.
Right.
And so they were retiring because they needed to make more money. Some of them had families. Some of them were just like, it's time, I have the potential to make more. So the information was a little biased.
Sure.
Now I think the age, the retirement age is increasing, but I think we still have a few years for it to really settle in and have more, I think, actionable data to look at.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked that too is that, I've spent 35 years in technology, And I have some friends who are system engineers or programmers and stuff. They're in their 40s and they have their own little game nights every couple times a week, and or Tuesday night game nights. It's kind of replaced poker. And I thought, is there an atrophy of skills that where maybe these younger kids come up? Because you know how that is in ball. I mean, you get to a certain age, you can't play anymore. Now, like Tom Brady is a complete anomaly playing in his 40s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Who knows when he's going to quit? He might be rolled out there on a wheelchair. But I was just kind of curious about that. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds, because do you think there's an atrophy of skills?
I think the bigger issue is actually burnout.
Okay.
Because the way that the players are training is different from traditional sports. If you look at like a football player, football is a good example in this scenario, because you can only train a certain number of hours a day, because you have to rest. You have to give your muscles time to recover, and in order to be able to train hard the next day, but also not get injured. If you're training too much, right? You have to rest. In esports, it's not that. While there are injuries, really the players who make it to the top are the ones that can consistently play, for 12 hours a day.
Wow.
And that's essentially what the training is. Not yet is it really highly like specialized in the sense that, you're going to work on throwing the ball for an hour, and then you're going to lift weights, and then you're going to run, and you're working on each individual skill for football. In League of Legends, for the most part, they're just playing League of Legends for 12 hours a day. And it's through just the sheer number of games you're playing that you're getting the repetitions you need to get good. Now, it's more situational training than it is very specialized training in that sense. But, football players are retiring by, the same time. The average career span in the NFL is like 2.5 years.
Yep.
Not much different from esports. But it's not because they're injured or there's a younger kid who, another running back who's coming up who hasn't been hurt and is a little bit quicker. It's because these players, like, can you imagine doing something every day for 12 hours straight? And the toll that would really take on your mind. That's really what's pushing a lot of the players out. And then they also realize a lot of them can make the same amount of money or more from being a full-time streamer than being a professional player.
Wow, that's cool. So let's talk about that in a second. But, I was just thinking about that. Okay, when I was playing football, I'd love to do hang cleans. I just love those. There was like the total body lift. You get just about every major muscle that you need. But you can't do them every day.
That's right.
And after about 5 sets, you're done. Now, you might be mopping yourself off the floor because you're done, but you're not touching. And that might take 15 minutes. But you're not touching that until 1 or 2 days later, or 2 days later, maybe 3 days later, depending on your schedule. At the least. And so, oh my goodness, to be able to sit there for 12 hours, maybe it's just having butt endurance to be able to sit and play for 12 hours. And
we've had players who had back injuries because they were sitting for too long. And we had
the mental acuity to be able to pay attention at that high level. Interesting. One time I, here in Colorado with the mountain roads and stuff, one time I took a trip. It was a business trip, and I had to run clear down the southwest corner of the state, and it's a 7.5-hour drive. So a lot of people on the East Coast don't understand driving 7.5 hours and being in the same state. Well, I did that in the morning. Then I came back. I mean, literally was in that town for like an hour and then came back. Well, it was driving 2-lane roads for 6 of those hours. Out in the middle of nowhere, completely dark. And so it was like being in a video game, because I'm running 70, 75 miles an hour. I'm hoping that elk don't step out in front of me. And you're pretty much close to outpacing your reaction time for your headlights. So your headlights beam out. So literally it reminded me of being in a like 6.5-hour video game. I was exhausted when I got home because I was trying to pay attention, not outrunning the headlights. So I can't even imagine what it would be like to sit for 12 hours. I mean, holy cow, that's amazing ability to have attention and then just endurance to sit that long, because, and if you're playing that long, you're not getting up and getting out of your vehicle and, getting fresh air for a few minutes. You're playing.
Yep. Exactly. It's incredibly difficult.
Hadn't thought about that. But if you look at this, the type of money they're making, I mean, they're not making Tom Brady type money, but if you're making a couple $100,000 a month, let's just say you're making $200,000 a month. Well, that's 2.4 million, and you play for 2 years, 3 years. You pretty much set yourself up for life if you're at that level.
Yep.
Or a good start on it, that's for sure.
If you manage that money well.
Yeah, if you managed it well. Okay, so let's talk about streaming. You just mentioned that. I mean, let's introduce streaming to everybody.
Streaming is essentially, well, in the gaming world, live streaming yourself playing video games and communicating with the audience.
Okay.
Whether it's through a written chat, a text conversation, or oftentimes they'll talk to the chat, answer questions as they play. Mm-hmm. It's also incredibly difficult because as you can, playing a video game, focus on the video game, and communicating with other people at the same time is really difficult. That's another crazy skill. The streamers are making more money than a lot of the pros are making.
Okay, so are streamers mostly retired players then? Retired pros? Really?
So some of them are, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them have some background in gaming, but it's not necessary that they're competitive. There's a minimum skill level you need to be a streamer, because if your gameplay isn't good, most people aren't going to follow you, right? So as soon as you achieve that minimum level, you're going to be you're fine. Now, the amount of hours that these people are playing, they're really good at the game anyway. I mean, you can't help but improve if you're playing this long. The biggest difference is that you're an entertainer.
Okay.
You're funny. You're providing insights on how you're playing. They play with other streamers and have a conversation. They're incredibly skilled at developing a community of fans online and interacting with that community. So these streamers have social media profiles, Twitter, Instagram, they put out YouTube videos.
TikTok, everything, right?
TikTok has been huge recently. Yep, that's right. And they just understand how to develop a community. And the good streamers make you feel as an audience member like you're their buddy and they're just the ones who have the controller this time. And you're just kind of all hanging out and they're playing and they're cracking jokes, and it's jokes that you would make with your friends. Right? That's how the good ones are. And so you feel like you're a part of something else.
A community. So I'm guessing that this is pretty much monetized for those streamers by subscription-oriented pay for this?
Yeah, so I mean, in the same way what I just explained for the pros, except the difference is they're probably not getting paid a salary by a team.
Right.
But they're the ones making the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. In fact, the pros have less of a following than a lot of these big-time influencers because they're focused on practicing and playing away from stream. And so after they've done all their team practices, that's when the pros will go on and stream for a couple hours at night. But you could go on Twitch right now, and there's probably a streamer who's doing 50,000 live audience members at any given time.
That's amazing. I mean, I got to turn my nephew onto this. I think he would be awesome at being a streamer because the kid's hilarious. I mean, he could do stand-up comedy. I'm pretty sure of that. And he spends a lot of time playing games. Okay, so
and he's playing already, so you might as well put the camera on.
Heck, man, if you only made $10,000 a month, that's more than most people, right? So that's fantastic. All right, so the next question I would have for you is, let's go back to the youth leagues. Okay, this fascinates me, and I think there's a big, I wouldn't say void, but there's a big place in the marketplace for this. So let's talk about that a little further. So you started developing these. Let's talk about what they comprise of today.
Yeah, so you're right. There is a huge white space in the market. There is no little league for video games.
No.
The other issue is that parents have problems with video games.
Yeah. They
think that they're not a productive way for their child to spend time. They're worried about communication with random people that their child may meet online. But they're totally fine letting their kids spend the same amount of time or more participating in youth traditional sports, right?
Sure.
And so I looked at all those issues and said, well, can we make gaming safe? Can we make sure that the kids are playing with other kids of their age and their skill level? Can we provide some level of supervision? And can we create a curriculum that's intended to develop social skills, life skills, help the kids build confidence in the same way that traditional sports organizations do, or traditional, youth sports teams. And so I studied Little League Baseball. I studied AYSO soccer, the club teams that I spent time on.
Sure.
And literally created a program that focuses on helping kids be better people, better community members through video games. We're honestly more of a youth development program than a video game league or anything like that.
The video game is just your ball, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's a great way to put it.
That's cool. So now you've got these for age-specific groups. So, if I'm an 8-year-old, I'm not playing against a 15-year-old, right?
Yeah, that's right. So our programs are 7 through 15. We create teams or groups with kids your own age. So yeah, you're not going to be playing with someone who's 5, 6 years older than you. It's mostly within two to three years. So if you're an entry-level player, we're going to put you with other entry-level players. And if you're a little bit more advanced, we'll put you with other more advanced players. And the same goes for the coaches too. So we have some coaches who played semi-professionally, or coaches who are players at in their college programs. We'll put the kids who are really good with those coaches. And the dynamic of the practice changes a little bit too, right? With those kids they really want to get better, and the coaches can help facilitate that. But some of the other teams, these kids just want to have a really fun time. And so we have coaches who know how to, what are some fun creative maps that we can play, and just facilitate a really fun environment for the kids.
Well, everybody, if you played youth sports over the years, and whether you played, various levels, everybody finds that fun coach and the people they connect with and stuff. And then just about everybody remembers a coach they would never want to see again. So, I'm sure
that's
that
right.
it's there. The connection's important. Now, how popular is this becoming? How's your company doing?
We're doing pretty well. We've had 2 really great seasons so far.
Okay.
We did League of Legends in the fall of 2020. Right now, we're just finishing up a Fortnite program. We're launching summer camps. We're adding the game Minecraft to our slate of curriculum as well. Hugely popular game, especially among young kids. We're developing partnerships with professional teams and influencers too. I grew up going to the Lakers summer camp.
Yep.
So why shouldn't we do a summer camp with some of the best Fortnite or League of Legends teams out there, to give some of those super fans the opportunity to learn from the pro players, the coaches, other staff members. So we're doing some things like that. Our registrations have increased every program, and we were on track to, again, double the number of registrations. So everything is moving in the right direction.
Now, do you do seasons like sports, or is this year round?
We have programming year round, but there are seasons. So, so our Fortnite season is in its 6th week of 8. So that's coming to a close right now. But all the kids will sign up and start at the same time. They have games with the other or against the other kids in the program every week. We'll be offering some more casual after school programs, basically just to practice. There's a coach teaching skills and doing fun stuff, but it doesn't connect to like a weekly or like a set program. Like it's not a 10-week program. You pop in, pop out whenever you please.
Okay. So I'm assuming that people still pay league fees, like as if you were playing ODP soccer or club ball or,
Exactly.
whatever. So do you have different price packages, or how's that work as far as if I'm a player, I'm interested, how's that work?
Yep, absolutely. Prices are in line with traditional sports programs, oftentimes cheaper.
Okay.
Great news is we don't have to rent a field.
Yep.
We don't have to buy equipment.
Yep.
All of our programs are virtual. And the state of gaming in the US is such that most people have their own equipment. You're not going to a place and renting equipment or paying an hourly fee to play, with someone's computer or Xbox. So we don't have to pay for some of those things, which allows us to charge a much lower cost than playing for a club volleyball team. Thousands of dollars a year. Our programs are our summer camps are $219 for the week. We offer scholarships for a lot of kids who can't participate. We work with other youth organizations, like a lot of boys and girls clubs, to offer our programs to their members as well.
That's fantastic, because raising 5 kids and kids being in sports, and then, a couple nephews that have played at really high level in ODP, Olympic development stuff. And, It isn't so much the fees, which the fees are ridiculous because you got to pay a coach, rent fields, but it was then all the other ancillary costs, travel, you go to tournaments somewhere and, well, we can't just do a tournament within 60 miles of our house. We've got to go 3 states over kind of thing. And
Yeah.
you got your travel. I mean, of course, there are no soccer teams you can play in your own state. You got to go somewhere else. And so you take in the travel, the equipment, and then the coach wants you to have the same equipment. So everybody has to have the same expensive cleats and the same socks and the same hats and the travel bags and stuff. Pretty soon your investment for that youth club team becomes ridiculous.
Yep.
So,
one of the things a lot of our parents love is that they don't have to leave the house.
yeah.
So imagine, you're going to drop your kid off at a practice. By the time you get there, then have to drive back. By the time you get home, you got to leave to go pick them up when practice is over. So they don't have to do any of that. They know that the kid is safe, that they're playing from home. They have free time, in fact, to get their own things done, whether it's around the house or work-wise. They don't have to spend all the time going to and from.
Oh, you're talking to a man who raised everybody in sports. And literally, there were nights most of the time between sports and dance for a little over a decade raising my kids. My kids are a 10-year span. So around a decade, frequently I didn't get home before 9 p.m. at night. And it was because I was running to practices and picking people up. And then Saturdays, forget it. I mean, you talk about 2 football games that are 3 hours long. I mean, there's got 6 travel time, to and from prep and all good stuff. I mean, of course, you can't go to a game before being there an hour before a game. 2 games would eat the whole Saturday. And then that doesn't include dance.
I remember those days.
Yeah. So it's not like it's something that I think that's really interesting because, wow, a parent can participate, be involved, but they're not, you're not spending your whole Saturday. Now, I'm not complaining because I loved every minute of it. I go through withdrawals every day of watching my kids play sports and that kind of stuff. But wow, this is a whole different concept. So the parents can still be involved, but you're not eating your whole day to do it.
That's right. One of the other interesting things that we found is that a lot of the participants, a lot of the players, the kids, don't participate in traditional sports, or they're not on an organized team. So while the parents, may not have to go through, that schedule you just talked about, the kids aren't getting the same team-based experiences.
Right.
They're just not interested in baseball or soccer or basketball. That's okay.
Or they may not have the skills.
Those important life lessons.
Yeah, they may not have the skills.
Whatever the reason is, yeah. And now we're able to give a lot of these kids those same social experiences to learn these life skills in an area that they're actually interested in and they're passionate about.
Oh, I really like what you're doing. I mean, it gives, like you said, a white space in the marketplace for people who may not be athletic. They may not have the ability to afford all that nonsense that I just talked about. And again, I'm positive about it. I love every minute of it, but it's gotten out of control from cost. So you're allowing kids to be part of a team, a community, have followings, and then allow them something that they can do for a lifetime. I mean, you're developing a lifetime skill. Now, a question for you. Do people switch or do players switch between different games? So I'm on Fortnite now, but maybe I want a different one next season type thing?
Yeah, the players that we work with, absolutely.
Okay.
We had a ton of the kids who were playing in the League of Legends League join the Fortnite League.
Okay.
And we communicate with a lot of those players, and they're telling us, hey, we want to do Minecraft. That was part of the reason why we developed a program for that game, because the players were already telling us this is what we want to see next.
Okay. So
in the professional scene, that's not the case. You're specialized on one games.
Sure.
But these are kids. Like, they love a lot of different things.
Well, you remember the phrase, if you were a multi-sport athlete, don't specialize until you're getting paid. So same thing here probably. And so that really creates the multi-sport athlete in esports, because I can remember as a kid, we played everything, You either you had your cleats for soccer or football in the fall. You traded that in for wrestling or basketball. And then in the spring, you put on spikes, and those were either baseball spikes or track spikes. So this allows the kids the same thing, a little variety. I think that's
exactly
cool. That's really
exactly.
Cool.
Not to mention, new games come out all the time.
Yeah.
So there could be a new game that comes out tomorrow that all the kids want to play.
Yeah.
And the game that they're playing now, they'd say, forget it, I'm done with that game. So we got to figure out how can we be cutting edge? How can we develop programs around the newest games as soon as they come out?
That's so cool, man. I love what you're doing. And, me, myself, I've never had the time just because I've had 5 kids and I know how addictive my personality is because I love what I do. I never hardcore got into games, but I totally love what you're doing. I respect it because it's bringing stuff to kids who may not be athletic. You're doing it the right way because you're helping them build a community, team, life skills, and stuff like that. And I really like when you started out explaining this, that it's really helping personal development. It isn't just playing a game.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
fantastic. Well, I love that you've come on today and given people a crack at this and taken a quick view. Give your website one more time so people understand how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, we can be found on any social media channel. Next Up Esports. That's NXTUP Esports, ESPORTS. And then same for the
Same
website,
for the website.
www.nextupesports.com.
Well, thanks for teaching about this. And I always have this last
Sure.
question, okay, that I have our guests come on, and some of it know it and some don't. So in this world today, we always talk about a bucket list. We always have things we want to aspire to do and do in our lives that might be adventuresome that we don't do every day. Well, there's always an opposite of everything in the universe. There always is an opposite, right? So there is a different type of list, and it's rhymes with bucket and starts with an F, but I don't gonna say that word, okay?
Sure.
And so tell me something that might be on a list that you would never want to do. We've learned a lot about you today.
I would never want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, it's actually probably on a lot of people's bucket list.
Okay.
Bungee jumping just sounds like the worst idea to me.
You're the
I
first
saw.
that's
Am I the
mentioned
first
it
one to
on the
say that?
show. No, nobody else has mentioned that. We got a lot of people jumping out of airplanes, not jumping out of airplanes. But I would agree with you. I don't get the whole idea of being like a mouse on a string. I just don't get that.
Yeah, I've seen videos of people doing it in like third world countries, and it just does no appeal to me whatsoever.
This is how I look at that for bungee jumping or any of that type of stuff. They built a bridge across the canyon for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, that's one you'll never catch me doing that. You'll never see any videos of me bungee jumping.
All right. Well, we've learned a lot today, and I really appreciate this, man. I can't wait to go check out your stuff. And you've educated a bunch of people today, and that's exciting. And so, life has way too many interests these days because so many things are virtual for just one lifetime. And there's always a great story around the corner. So thanks for sharing yours.
Absolutely, I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, folks, we'll call that one a wrap for today. Remember to hit the website, rexandrewshow.com, and check out the bios. There are obviously going to be links on the page today. I thought they were there, but I just looked and he hadn't updated it. So there'll be links to Luke's business there and more about his company. So until next time, I just always have the 3 things to say: be safe, be bold, and make it a great day.